If you enjoy my videos, please like and subscribe. The goal is to get to 500 and make it to the creator program. But anyway, the original cover clearly shows you what you're getting into. A book about magic and a big-ass scary rabbit with big-ass teeth. The slime seems to be the same color as You Can't Scare Me, and the reprint uses a classic blue and orange combo. Our taglines are, "That's no Easter Bunny," and "Pick a scare, any scare." Not so good. And that's really it. We've reached an era where most books don't get newer reprints and the plots get increasingly absurd. So let's get to the summary. Our main character today is Tim Swanson, and his life goal is to be a great magician like Amazo, his idol. At school, Tim pulls off the classic "Is this your card?" trick, wowing a bunch of kids. Ruining their amazement though, Tim's sister Ginny always loves to spoil it. The whole deck is the same card, and yes, Ginny is a perfect blonde angel who also takes karate lessons, so Tim will never get one up on her. Apparently one of the reasons he wants to be a magician is so he can make her disappear, which just isn't how this works, but a boy can dream. Tim at least has a friend named Foster, nicknamed Foz, but he says that Tim needs to get some real professional magic tricks. Conveniently, their town has a dedicated magic shop, with tricks inside designed by Amazo himself, who's actually performing in town soon. Tim, however, only has $5, not enough for any good stuff or a ticket to see Amazo tomorrow. Tim and Foz decide to do some window shopping as Mr. Malik, the owner, shows off a new trick sword for only $20. Womp womp. Out of literally nowhere, though, he tells the boys, "Hey, I got 2 free passes to Amazo's show tomorrow if you want them." Wow! Unfortunately, Foz says he's forced to go to attend his mom's birthday, but hopefully Tim will have more luck. Another trick catches Tim's eyes as it seems Foz is messing with a guillotine. Foz twists a lever and the blade comes down. "My hand!" Mr. Malik freaks out and says he'll call 911, but the kids laugh. With a little fake blood, Mr. Malik forgot his guillotine was a trick one he's selling in his own damn store. On the way home, Tim tells Foz to bring his sister's bunny to his magic show tomorrow. Will that go well? Tim strides into his house calling himself the Great Swanzini, slinging quarter tricks. He's angry his parents think magic is just a hobby, while his sister learning self-defense is important. What gives? So Tim tries to slip in that whole free tickets thing, and Ginny really wants to come with. As expected though, his parents say hell no. Not only is it a school night, but the show's at 10 p.m. So Tim gets pissed and storms off without even eating his ice cream. He goes to the garage to keep working on his rabbit table. It has a secret compartment the rabbit sits in under the hat. Ginny comes in to harass Tim, asking how he's even getting a rabbit anyway. Instead of telling the truth, he says he'll turn her into a rabbit. But that's impossible, right? Cut right to Tim's magic show, and everybody wants to see the rabbit trick. With the late arrival of Foz, the rabbit's finally here, and Tim puts it into the compartment before anyone sees. He literally says, "Abracadabra, abracadeer, rabbit, rabbit, rabbit appear," and it's gone. He looks up to see Ginny point at the rabbit running across the backyard. How? Well, it seems the secret compartment is not just a box, but it has opening sides, which he forgot to close. So Foz is pissed, and this rabbit is hightailing it across the yard. Every single person starts chasing, but Tim's in the lead, and suddenly the rabbit stops. It's because the neighbor's cat Boo Boo is ready to attack. The rabbit jumps, and in a moment, Ginny takes a flying karate leap and grabs the rabbit. So this was another magical disaster, and Foz is not lending that rabbit again. Again, Tim threatens to turn Ginny into a rabbit, and knows that the only way to fix his reputation is to buy a new trick from the magic shop. But how? At night, Tim thinks, well, I can't just miss Amazo's magic show, remember that? I'm gonna sneak out. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, this chapter is just Tim trying to slowly make his way downstairs without getting caught. But he does get caught by Ginny, of course, who says that unless he lets her sneak out with him, she'll rat him out to mom and dad. So now these two kids ride out into the night past 10 p.m. for a magic show. The event is at Midnight Mansion, which is now less house, more nightclub. The tuxedoed man guarding the entrance says he can't seat them without their parents, but Tim's excuse that mom and dad are still parking the car somehow works against this guy's better judgment. The show begins and the stage is revealed with a whole bunch of props. Amazo appears with the most stereotypical magician outfit you could think of and looks right at Tim. Then he whispers, "Disappear, disappear." Amazo clarifies that he's asking for a volunteer to disappear later and he's going to pick Tim. Awesome. The show proceeds as you'd expect, except for a white rabbit that seems to be watching the act rather than just participating. After plenty of arguably impossible magic tricks, he invites a volunteer for the disappearing act. In the excitement, Tim almost forgets to raise his hand. I hope nothing goes wrong. Tim starts feeling scared, and Amazo's trademark style of humor, where he acts like his magic is off the rails and not guaranteed to work, certainly isn't helping. He's guided into a pitch-black box and stands still. A Apparently, Amazo's gonna spin this thing 10 times and send Tim to another dimension. But that can't really happen, right? Tim nearly gets sick after all this spinning, but then the floor falls out from under him and he slides down a chute onto a mattress. A simple trick, just a trap door to the basement. Amazo himself announces he'll be departing to find Tim and ends the show, but he doesn't show up. Tim starts hearing everyone moving chairs and leaving, so he decides it's time to get out himself. He climbs up some old stairs, but the door at the top is locked. Tim starts yelling for help with no answer. He notices the door is locked by a metal hook that isn't too secure, so with enough force he slams it open, leading to a dark hallway. I'm a little surprised and impressed by the proactivity of our characters here. They sneak out at night, slam lock doors down, the sister knows karate, a lot more competent and rebellious than most of these goose kids. Anyway, at the end of the hall is another door with light under it. Propped against the wall is a property of Amazo case, so he must still be here. When knocking doesn't work, Tim decides to shyly peek into the room and ask if he can come in, as he sees Amazo and the rabbit literally in the room. The door then slams shut and he yells, "Beat it, punk!" I am flabbergasted. The great Amazo is an asshole? In retaliation, Tim grabs the black case of tricks by the door and runs. He even makes it out to the parking lot without Amazo bothering to follow, until a voice yells, "Stop!" Tim assumes he's about to get arrested, but it's just Ginny, mad that he's leaving without her. Tim throws on another lie that Amazo gave Tim the case for being such a good sport. But if he gave that to you, why are the guards running towards us? Time to run, but where's Ginny's bike? Tim is literally about to leave Ginny behind, but because she could still rat him out for leaving, he decides to stay. He spots her bike a ways away and the escape begins. The guards can't outrun the bikes and they make it home scot-free. With threats of being snitched on, the case will stay in the attic and shared between both kids. Then on Saturday, they can test what's in it. But Tim takes it up and thinks, what's wrong with just a peek? Then the case blows up. Tim thinks he died, but it seems the box has a sound chip, like one of those birthday cards, that plays an explosion sound when you open it. The case is filled with many standard things, handcuffs, scars, guess the ball under the cup stuff, but there's also a tuxedo. Tim tries it on, despite how large it must be, but then he feels something wiggle by his neck. Then his arm. Suddenly it pokes out of his sleeve. A snake! The remarkably calm snake slithers out onto the floor while Tim shakes his arm like a madman. Then he feels another one by his shoulder, and another, and another! Tim throws the jacket onto the ground and climbs up onto a chair. He decides despite being in trouble, he has to tell Mom and Dad or he won't get out. But then all the hissing stops and the snakes go still. All of the snakes were rubber wind-up toys! This kid is an idiot, bro. Tim's mood changes to amazement at all these great tricks and forces himself to wait till Saturday to try the rest. He realizes he has to return it, despite how much of an ass Amazo was. It's only right to give it back. In the morning, Mom and Dad are none the wiser, and they just talk about their dead-end jobs that they hate. When did Stein decide to start being more realistic? Anyway, Ginny starts slowly dropping hints that something secret happened, then she just blurts out the entire sneaking out business. He's doomed! But Mom was running water in the sink and didn't hear shit, so Ginny decides it's not worth repeating. Tim pulls her aside and yells at her for breaking this deal, but she says she went to the attic and saw Tim left evidence of checking the case out early. So despite this clearly reasonable response from Ginny, Tim wants revenge. Saturday is here and Mom and Dad both leave for their own business. Tim tells Foz to come over and tells him all about the plot before testing out the tricks. The explosion sound scares the hell out of the other kids, and Tim starts with the ball under the shell trick. You know, where you move the ball around, but you pocket the ball so no matter which one they choose, they're wrong. Classic money scam. Now, despite pocketing the ball, the one Ginny picks still actually does have a ball under it. He tries again, but a new ball appears. Again. Now 3 balls under each shell. Again. 10, 20, balls everywhere! Tim grabs the ball sack and shoves as many balls back in as he can. The balls seem to keep multiplying and he slams the case shut. The next trick is a flattened top hat. He pops it open and suddenly a dove comes out from under it, and just like the balls, they seem to keep multiplying. The attic's now full of birds and balls, and Tim's last resort is a magic wand inside the case. He waves it around and says, "Everything, stop!" The magic wand doesn't seem to work, so everybody runs outside. Tim brings the case along saying that at least if birds come out here, they can fly away. Throughout the past 2 chapters, Ginny and Foz kept talking about how hungry they were, so when Tim opens the case again, Ginny finds a carrot and just decides to eat the damn thing. And you won't believe what happened. After just 1 bite, Ginny turns into a rabbit. Wow! Tim is dazed that he wanted to do that earlier, and now that vague wish/threat has actually come true. Tim's only idea is that if she bites the carrot again, she might turn back, but she turns her head away. Suddenly, her rabbit ears pick up Mom and Dad pulling into the driveway, so she takes a panicked extra bite, and nothing happens. Tim runs away to check on Mom and Dad, but false alarm as it was just somebody else making a U-turn. Tim tries the wand again, which doesn't work, so Foz says, maybe say it in rhyme like magicians do? Magic wand wins that whirl, turn Ginny back into a girl. The wand shakes, but all that happens is some handkerchiefs pop out of the tip and fly away. Did I mention it's super windy? Tim flips the whole case over and sees a note labeled instructions, but before he can read the tip on the magic carrot, the wind blows it away. A wild goose chase begins just for this little piece of paper before it drifts into a stream and floats away. Tim's last idea is to take her directly to Amazo himself and have him turn her back. Despite being a nightclub and Amazo being assumedly a traveling performer, I guess the Midnight Mansion is just his home. So when they bike over there, the sign says, "We're closed." Luckily for them, the place has an unlocked back door. Security in the Goosebumps universe is pretty lax. They make it down to the basement hall and find the same door to the dressing room. Now, the book didn't make it clear before, but now the hallway leads to the kitchen. So I suppose he didn't have to cut through the dressing room to leave, and it was just separate from the exit. Now, despite knowing Amazo is a jerk, Tim still has the courtesy to ask if he can come in, but Amazo doesn't answer. Foz says they should just leave, but Tim makes his way inside. Amazo seems to just be sitting at a couch away from the kids and doesn't even respond when they talk to him. Tim taps his shoulder and Amazo topples over. He's dead! No, wait, he's a puppet! Oh no, not this again. Foz says this must not be the real Amazo, but Tim thinks that his idol is just a wooden fraud. The same voice from before says, "Hey punk, I told you to beat it." The voice wasn't coming from the dummy though, it's his rabbit. So now time for the exposition dump. Amazo actually is this rabbit, and the dummy was built to look like the old him. Amazo had a rival who was a real sorcerer named Frank. Tim almost laughs, but Amazo says, "You got a friend named Foz, and you want to make fun of a dude named Frank." Yeah. So when Amazo was at the peak of his career, Frank, the literal sorcerer, was jealous. He had a high-pitched voice, so nobody liked him, and he turned Amazo into a rabbit out of jealousy. But Amazo wouldn't let that stop him, and somehow, as a rabbit, both built and still operates this dummy to do magic shows. Tim confesses that he did borrow the magic kit and needs his help, but Amazo says there's nothing he can do. Nothing he can do because the spell's gonna wear off by itself in about a half an hour. Tim tells Foz to take Ginny home while they can still hold her so he can talk to Amazo some more. Amazo praises Tim for being so good in the act, and Tim talks about his dreams. Amazo actually offers for him to join the act, being tired of using that dummy. Why not? And so now Tim is part of Amazo's act, but there was a bit of a catch. See, he didn't want Tim to take over as the dummy, he took over as the rabbit. Tim's new name is Fluffy, and hey, how many kids, or rabbits, can say their lifelong dream came true at age 12? Yes, he really says that, and I can't fathom both the how and the why behind that happening and Tim being so happy. I'm all for another unhappy twist ending, but my only assumption is that Amazo was completely lying about his sorcerer rival Frank, and perhaps made himself a rabbit on accident, needing a willing participant to switch back. Honestly, if that's what Stein was going for, it's genius, because it would also explain the clear, real magic happening with Amazo's props. That brings this book to a new level. But despite no reprints, this book does have a TV episode, so let's see it. The episode starts with Tim and Foz hanging outside Malik's magic shop, where the music is way too loud.
Come on, just pick a card. I need you to pick a card.
What you need is some new tricks like Amazo.
Yeah. But they're so expensive.
Malik himself actually shows off the guillotine this time.
No, not that one!
Very similar to the book, when Malik says the thing is $2.50, Tim thinks it's $2.50. Idiot. So out of pity, Malik gives those free tickets and we cut all the way to Tim making his great escape. He gets caught by Ginny as expected, but Ginny seems less karate inclined, less blonde, and not interested in the show at all. But she says she has to go anyway. Cut right to the show where nobody stops them from getting in, and wow, cool tricks. Amazo doesn't whisper to Tim, hell he doesn't even talk at all until he asks for a volunteer. Amazo has plenty of jokes, even saying,
"If you meet a red-headed boy with a Hawaiian shirt, tell him he got an A in science class and his cat had kittens."
This even comes into play later when the trick happens as the Hawaiian shirt kid appears from who knows where. Like the book, Tim is locked in the basement, but he at least has a whole bevy of props to mess with over time. The door actually opens and Colin Mockery shows up? He just tells him where the exit is and steps away. He's not even credited in this episode. Tim finds the dressing room, actually steps inside this time, and gets told to beat it again. But the voice is like off away in another room.
You know how many kids would give their right arm to be in my nice show? Now get out of here, you little brat.
He steals the trick case. What the fuck? How did she even get here? Tim instead admits to stealing the case immediately because he thinks Amazo's a fraud, and the explosion jump scare is now... The tuxedo has a snake hand now instead of moving ones, which...
But look at it, though. It's so real.
Yeah, you bet. Ginny uses this banner that makes things disappear, and I guess they couldn't afford a carrot because this makes her turn into a rabbit. Except the rabbit talks. And the rabbit isn't actually Ginny, he's...
L. Sydney, wizard extraordinaire.
He says that Amazo is an evil POS who made Ginny disappear because that case is full of evil magic. L. Sydney says he invented the guillotine gag, and Amazo, his hero, turned him into a wabbit, his words, because he was jealous of Sydney's centuries-old magic wand. So yeah, this plot's completely different now. I guess it's nice to have more talking rabbit action. They go to the stage and run through countless wands until I guess they found the right one. The deal was to bring Ginny back first, so...
Alakazam! Alakazar! Ginny, come back from wherever you are! Please! Ah!
Sydney says he'll put Tim in his act just like Amazo does in the book. And right after Tim changes him back, Amazo shows up to conveniently reveal that the rabbit was actually an evil magician that Amazo turned into a rabbit to keep people safe. So now L. Sydney is free, looking like an extra from Pirates of the Caribbean, and he puts Amazo in an Ermac soul trap. He then turns Amazo himself into a rabbit, and Tim as well for that matter, strapping both of these poor bunnies into a guillotine. Well, that was something. A complete character shift for Amazo and a pretty horrific ending now that an evil magician's on the loose. Though he seems to just be doing shows. But what an interesting concept. Be sure to subscribe because in 2 weeks it's gonna get weirder with egg monsters from Mars.